So here we are, day 3 of the StarCraft week. I'm feeling quite good about this. So the last couple of days we've talked about Jim Raynor, the Marshal. Yesterday we talked about Sarah Kerrigan, the Zerg Queen and the Queen of Blades. Now I figured for day 3 we could discuss two different things here, which really the two of them get tied together in the long run. So I wanted to do Zeratul, and that will still happen at this point. But I figured we could also talk about a little bit about his species, the Nerazim, or as you know them, the Dark Templars. So with that, let's put the tray tables up. Let's sit back and relax as we head to Ayr and meet his Zeratul and his brothers. So with that, also welcome to day 3 of Ultimate Mayhem StarCraft Edition, and welcome to Zeratul's world. Also, we're going to talk, like I said, this is Nerazim Edition as well. So we're going to start with the Nerazim first, the Dark Templars. You know, the little guys that turn invisible when you spawn them first, and then you can merge them into Dark Archons. I was disappointed, really, in StarCraft 2 when they took the Dark Archons out, because that was a game changer for Brood War. When you could control, say, take a Zerg, you can literally make all three forces into one. It was something I enjoyed doing, because you could just go over mind control the like the drone and the SCV, and then you would take them back to your base and be like, haha, now I have everything. Let's launch nukes. Did you send a ghost in and you would launch a nuke on the base? Would the base survive? Well, it depends on the person, really. It seemed like the computer players they couldn't figure that one out. So let's start with the Nerazim, and then we'll talk a little bit about Zeratul. So during a point where the different Protoss tribes have been brawled in civil war between them, after their ancient species had left the planet, there was no more of this ancient tribes, and so they basically started fighting each other. All the Protoss came to an agreement and a belief that which they knew as the Kala. So they all came to the realization that they're basically all the same people, but we need to share minds so we can understand each other. This would allow them to become one mind and use their abilities to understand each other a bit better, which led the Protoss to become peaceful and become one people, which spanned their entire empire across many worlds. Now, the Protoss, obviously, yes, civil war came, but they're also spread across so many worlds that between them, they were also able to use their psychic abilities to share their empaths so that the person next to them or the person fighting them could understand how that person felt. Those who chose not to accept the Kala, because they felt that they would lose their individualism, became part of the group known as the Nerazim, or the Dark Templars, as we know them. The Kala Protoss believed that these free-minded believers were heretics to their system and hence tried to drive them off the planet. Doesn't that sound kind of familiar? It really does at this point. One group of people saying, okay, enough's enough, and just because you do not believe we do, we're going to chase you away. Thus, those who believed in the Nerazim way were sent to Shakuras to get that planet settled. So the Dark Templar and those who believed in the Dark Templar ways were sent off the homeworld because, obviously the Kali did not believe in them, and hence, sent them to live on their own and exile them out. The Nerazim were aware of the threat that the Zerg had become and hence prepared to fight them in the process. As they were fighting the Zerg, a group of Dark Templars led by Zeratul had come to an agreement with the Protoss Empire, who had been led by Tassadar, and the two groups had decided to reunite and become one once more. So they're basically separated, and now they're becoming one again. So now let's talk about the leader of the Nerazim. So we're talking now about Zeratul. So when we first meet Zeratul, he and his people were receiving praises from Tassadar for helping the Protoss out when they needed them the most. So when the Protoss decided, okay, enough's enough, and we need help, Zeratul and his crew stepped up. Even though the Nerazim were still a bit concerned with the other race of Protoss, Tassadar had managed to get them convinced to come home. So the Nerazim were still hesitant about the whole returning to Protoss because they didn't want to become part of the Kali. That makes sense. The Protoss continued their civil war between the Executor, who had been allied with the Dark Templar, and the Vanguard, Tassadar, and his crew. So in the Vanguard, basically anybody who was supporting the Kali at that point. Tassadar and his crew had been shown to be traitors, hence captured Zeratul in a stasis cell trying to kill him. The Allied forces protected Zeratul when Tassadar is freed. So I'm assuming it was either Zeratul or Tassadar. I made a mistake here, but I think it was either one of them. And Zeratul appears to give the truth to Eldaris about the divide of the people and the Protoss. When the Zerg arrive to try to take over, Tassadar is trained in the ways of the Dark Templar, whom also teams up with Raynor's Raiders. And even though the Conclave did not agree with it, they still allowed it to go through. The result of the assault was the death of the Overmind. So basically, when we were talking about in the previous video, we're talking about the Overmind, and we're talking about the will of the Overmind controlling people. Now, this particular assault that the Conclave of the Protoss didn't approve of and all that led to the death of him. After the fall of the Hive Overmind, Zeratul led his people through the Warp Gate from Ire back to their homeworld of Shakuras. Zeratul had been able to convince Eldaris that it was necessary to evacuate the planet. While Raynor and Phoenix went off to find the Zerg, and then the Zerg would overrun their escape. So basically, Raynor and Phoenix, good friends, decided to go off and try to find them, try to fight them so they could protect the Warp Gate. But that obviously failed because the Warp Gate was found by the Zerg, and the Zerg were trying to basically destroy it. Then Zeratul puts into motion a plan to reunite the Kali with the Dark Templars, which he also showed some of the secret plans of Samir Duran. Now, if you remember correctly, in Brood War, Samir Duran is basically the 2IC of the Zerg, but he's also working with the Terrans to try to get them to work together. He revealed the plans to help breed the Protoss with the Zerg, so it would create some variation of a hybrid. To which Zeratul goes off to find the master, and plans with it. To go with it. So he goes off and he's trying to find now Samir Duran and trying to get the plans made. So, yes, this may have been about a short video, but we did what we did because I figured I would cover both the Nerazim and Zeratul and his brethren. And, this was actually probably the best way to do this. Next week, I'm going to do a Marvel week. So I'm going to talk about Moon Knight. Obviously, with the show coming, I figured that's the appropriate time to go and do this. I might have a guest with me. We're going to talk possibly an actor. On this channel, it's not out of a possibility that we could do that. And I'm going to do Michael Morbius as well. I think with Morbius, with the movie coming, this will help people understand him a little bit better as well. So with that, let the multiverse be your guide to new and exciting things. Those doors which hide treasures await, and hence they are the true guide. My name is Rogue Convoy, and this has been Ultimate Mayhem, Zeratul Edition.